following is a production of Shark Flight Media. Dark Flight Media. Dark Flight Media. Dark Flight Media.
Now entering the nexus of geekery and guy world in 3, 2, 1. Mark.
Hello, IT. Have you tried turning it off and on again?
What's better than this? Guys being dudes.
This is the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast.
Hey kids, what's happening? Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast. I am your host, Ian J. Malone. Going to be joined by my partners in crime here in just a couple of minutes. That would, of course, be Rob and Kevin. Also got a fantastic guest interview on tap tonight, as well as your listener questions and all kinds of fun stuff. Before we get into that, though, you know what time it is? It is Pay Them Bills time. That, of course, is a big shout out to our presenting sponsor, Chris Kennedy Publishing. Doesn't matter what you're into, folks. If it's military, sci-fi, space opera, paranormal romance, heck, man, stuff on the craft. If you fancy yourself a writer, they've got it all over there at Chris Kennedy Publishing. If you want to know more about their books, about their authors, about their various series, it's all online at chriskennedypublishing.com. Again, that's chriskennedypublishing.com. They're also quite active on Facebook with their CKP, The Factory Floor, and 4HU Merc Guild groups. So if you're on that social network, be sure to go find them there. They're also on an array of other socials, but Facebook is the big one with the groups. So as mentioned at the top, lots of stuff going on tonight, not the least of which is a special guest interview that we've been looking forward to for quite a while. But before we bring our guest on, I do want to say hi to my guys. Rob and Kevin, how are we doing this evening, sirs?
Doing good. Pretty good. My Falcons are still stinking up the field, but I'm still a fan.
Rob, how's life?
Well, got a lot better when Greg Zerline nailed that 56-yarder at the end of the game on Sunday. That was a nerve-wracking game, but I knew it would be.
I was going to say, I would wager that was the pucker factor was at about 10.5, if not 11 in the Howell house with that about that point on Sunday afternoon. So
yeah, I mean, you know, it was actually a really good team win because the Cowboys were down 7 starters already, and Justin Herbert is the real deal.
Sure.
And they got a lot of other good players there. I'm ecstatic we came out of that one with a win. Bob Sturm, who, as you guys might remember, was on the show a while ago, has this talk he gives every year after the first win that isn't a pretty win. And it's, we don't apologize for wins in the NFL.
Right.
We especially don't apologize for wins in the NFL against a playoff caliber team in their park.
Right. Yeah, so, I would be remiss if I didn't add for the folks listening at home. If you do fancy yourself as an NFL fan, Bob Sturm of The Athletic, who was a guest on this show, he did our NFL draft show back in May, I guess it was. Great follow on social media. If you want a really good deep dive insight into somebody who really knows not only the National Football League, but also just the game of football from a competition and an analytics standpoint, Bob's really a mind for that stuff. So definitely go out and follow him. But anyway, we didn't get on this show tonight to talk more NFL, although that will be coming up in our Podmail segment later because we got a question about that from a listener. But we got ourselves an interview which comes to us from the Salvage title universe, and good Lord Almighty, lots of stuff happening over in that franchise these days. Rob, I mean, good grief.
Yeah, you know, there might be an anthology that I was just in with 232 rock and roll references, but, you know, we won't, that's not for tonight. That's something different. Tonight's talking to Kacey Ezell, one of our favorite people. How you doing, Kacey?
I'm good. You guys are my favorite people, too.
Oh, shucks.
Now we're all blushing.
I'm just sad that we don't get to talk about football while I'm during my interview because I love football.
We could probably work something in an outtake segment. I mean, that could be achieved. I do happen to know the producer.
Fair enough. No, while you were doing your intro, you know, you started talking about football and it occurred to me, I was like, you know, a lot of like the stuff that I've learned about and applied to having a creative career, a lot of that stuff kind of came from my love of sports in general and football in particular. The big one being exactly what Rob was saying. Like, you don't apologize for your wins, right? You celebrate, you take that W, regardless of how you got it. You know, I mean, as long as you got it honorably and it's a true win, then, heck yeah, man, you celebrate that. Doesn't matter if you turned in the manuscript at 11:59 on the night before the deadline. That's a win, and you take it.
Oh, sure, no doubt. Well, shifting to the college ranks, I can tell you as a Florida State fan, we would take a win by hook or crook right now. So, but we won't start down that path. That way lay madness. So, Rob,
Sure,
I'm going to hand you the interview reins, buddy. It's all you.
Yeah, we don't need to dwell on what was probably the worst week of football in Florida college history for like decades. All right, Kacey. So now that we know that you're a football fan and a sports fan, tell us more about you and your background. And I got to know, is TC from Magnum PI your idol?
I mean, of course. Actually, so yeah. So my name's Kacey, and I fly helicopters and write books. And TC from Magnum PI is kind of tied with Hal and Mad Murdoch from the A-Team as my personal idols. But I did always think that TC was the absolute coolest member of that show.
Absolutely. I liked him quite a bit. I'm shocked, by the way, at how good Tom Selleck has gotten as an actor as he's grown. But yeah, I always liked Roger Mosley the best of those three. So, helicopter pilot. How does a helicopter pilot get into writing in the first place? What writers inspired you to do this?
So, interestingly enough, the inspiration to fly and the inspiration to write for me came from the same place. When I was about 7 years old, I was kind of an early reader and a very annoying kid, and I'm pretty sure my mom, one day this is when we were living in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and my mom shoved a copy of Anne McCaffrey's Dragon Drums into my hands, was like, here, this book's for kids, go read it. Basically, I'm pretty sure just to get me out of her hair. But I read it, and I fell in love with the concept of fire lizards and dragons as written in Anne McCaffrey's Pern series, and decided that I wanted to grow up to be a dragon writer. Well, small problem with that is that there's not a lot of dragons in that sense on Earth. So being the logical 7 to 9 year old that I was, I figured that flying aircraft was about as close as I was going to get. And yeah, so, that's where both my love of science fiction and fantasy and my love of aviation came from, was because I wanted to be a dragon rider.
That's really cool. I have to say that's a much better story than me getting into it. But I will also say that my parents also threw books at me just to get me out of their hair. My mom never listens to this. She'll be like, oh yeah, I get that. So you don't just write this or that. You write a ton of stuff. You write some stuff in the 4HU. Talk about that.
Yeah, so I am one of the core authors of the Four Horsemen universe, which has been an incredible privilege and a lot of fun to do. Marisa Wolf and I together co-wrote Assassin and Hunter, and we're currently working on Ally to round out they're part of the larger series, but Assassin was the first book that focused on the alien race of the Depik, which are these felinoid assassins with, a couple of interesting abilities. And so, we essentially developed that race within the universe, and so we became known as the Depik ladies, if you will. So when other authors would want to use a member of that race, they would come to us for technical guidance about, how do these aliens work, etc. And so that's been a lot of fun to do. And in addition to that, Mark Wandry and I wrote Weaver together, which focused on the Tortantula, which are basically Volkswagen-sized spiders. So you're welcome for that mental image. And and then I've done a bunch of short stories. I think up till now, there's only one of the Four Horsemen anthologies that I don't have a story in, and I wrote the foreword for it. So that's pretty fun.
So the first thing I read from you is Minds of Men, which I loved. And so talk about that, and it's got a sequel, and do you have more planned in that world?
Yeah, I sure do. So Minds of Men was my first published novel. It's published by Chris Kennedy Publishing, and it is it's essentially a secret history. It's also kind of my love letter to World War II aviation. So it's the story of Evelyn Adamson, who is a psychic woman who was recruited in 1943 by the Army Air Corps to fly on B-17s to help them fly tighter formation, which in turn would help them better defend themselves against the Luftwaffe, who were basically eating their lunch at that point in the war, because this was before the P-51 Mustang showed up. And so the bombers didn't have the long-range fighter escort that they needed to protect them for the entirety of their mission. So that was the first book that I wrote, and published, and it was a lot of fun. Actually, it's funny that you mentioned I just recently reread it because it's in preparation for a book club discussion that we're going to have out here in Japan. But it's funny going back and reading like some of your early stuff and seeing where you've developed as a writer. But even with all that, I'm still really, really proud of the story and the character development and stuff that I did in that one. One of the side, well, I guess she's not really a side character. The antagonist in Minds of Men is a German psychic by the name of Lena Suhren, and when time came to write the sequel, I flipped it around and made her the protagonist. So the sequel to Minds of Men is called The World Asunder, and it is set in 1948, about 3 years after the war is over. And it's set during the opening days of the Berlin airlift. And if you're not familiar with the story of the Berlin airlift and you're into aviation or military history or anything like that, it's a really, really interesting episode. And so, go like Wikipedia it or whatever and check it out, because just fascinating what happened, like the political forces in play at the time, and how the various nations of the world responded. But so The World Asunder is less a war story and more like a little bit more of a Cold War spy thriller type of feel. But it's Lena's story after the fall of Berlin and all of the terrible things that happened within that. And then the third book, which I am currently working on, I hope to have finished by the end of the year, is called Skies to Conquer, and it is a story set in the Vietnam War, and there will be Hueys.
Gotta be Hueys, eh?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the aircraft that I fly, and she's a magnificent bird, and she is the quintessential Vietnam helicopter, so I would be remiss if I didn't include her in that novel.
Then you did a Kane Riordan book with in Chuck Gannon's world. Is that correct?
Yes. So for the first season of Chuck Gannon's Kane Riordan series is an amazing hard sci-fi series, and he opened up a corner of it to a couple of us other authors, and that project became the Murphy's Lawless project. And so I have my first novella in that series was for season 1, and it was called Promises. And it tells the story of a female helicopter pilot. Go figure. And then
this is my shocked face.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Weird. Write what you know. Did I hear that sometime?
Yes.
But so that was Promises. And then the second novella that I wrote in that world was for the second season, and that one was called Sundown, and that's the story of Mara, the helicopter pilot. That's the story of her crew chief and the things that he's willing to do and go through to keep his pilot and friend safe. So
nice. Then let's see, Second Chance Angel with Griffin Barber. Is that a noir? Are we about to get into the noir portion of the
Yeah, we are. You know it. You know it. So one of my other obsessions is the noir genre. I love film noir. I love reading Raymond Chandler and Dashiell Hammett, and just I love this sort of intersection of humanity that we get to look at through this lens of kind of the underside, the underbelly, the dark side of what do we do as people. And what makes us remain human throughout it all, and that's one of the things that I think that you can really access through noir fiction or movies or what have you. And so Second Chance Angel is a science fiction noir that I co-wrote with Griffin Barber. And it tells the story of a beat-up war veteran who pairs up with the unlikely ally in an AI in order to find the AI's person that she was originally linked to. And it's probably one of my favorite things I've ever written. It was Griff is a fantastic collaborator, and I really had a great time working with him on that. And so it's actually about to come out in paperback sometime this month or next. Mass market paperback run on that one. Should be pretty cool.
You've also got some other things in that genre working on. You have an anthology and more coming. Talk about that. I might be especially interested in one of those.
Yeah. So because I'm so obsessed with noir, and I love it and think it's amazing, and wish there was more of it out there to read. A couple years ago, Larry Correia of Monster Hunter fame and I did so Larry's main series is the Monster Hunter series, but he also has this really, really good series called the Grim Noir series, and it's fantastic. Set in the 1930s. Yeah, it's basically like a 1930s urban fantasy noir, right? And it is so good. And so several years ago, thanks to some fortuitous panel timing, I managed to talk Larry into doing a project with me where we edited an anthology of crossover stories or mashups that were science fiction noir or fantasy noir or urban fantasy noir, whatever. And that book became Noir Fatale, which is a science fiction / fantasy anthology that focuses on the character archetype of a femme fatale, right? Which is one of our favorite, when I say our, I sort of mean collectively, like people, right? We enjoy the figure of the femme fatale. She's an interesting character to us. And I think when I say femme fatale, almost everybody can probably picture one in their mind that, kind of stands out for them. So we wanted to do an anthology about her. And we did, and it was great, and it was very well received. And because it was so well received, I was able to convince Tony Weisskopf, the publisher at Baen, to let me do 2 more noir anthologies with Larry. And so right now we're currently in the process of final stages of putting together No Game for Nights, which is sort of the boys' answer to Noir Fatale. That's an anthology focusing on the character archetype of the noir detective in science fiction and fantasy in particular. And Rob Howell, we haven't announced the full table of contents, but I'll go ahead and leak that Rob Howell has a story in that one, and it's really, really good. It's a great fantasy noir story. And then sometime next year, we're going to be putting together the 3rd installment, which will be called Down These Mean Streets. And it is an anthology that focuses on kind of the city as a setting within the noir genre, and why is that important in the city as almost as like another type of character. So really exciting stuff. I've had so much fun reading, these stories that have come in for this anthology, and it's been a real privilege to work with Rob and Larry and the other authors who are involved. So I can't wait. I have to get one more story in, and then we can announce the final lineup, and I'm so excited about it.
Awesome. Well, thanks I'm sorry I jumped the gun there a little bit. I didn't realize it hadn't been announced. I thought it had, but I'm excited. I'm really excited to be a part of it. I too am a huge Raymond Chandler fan, and of course, No Game for Nights and Down These Mean Streets. They come from Larry Chandler, Raymond Chandler quotes. Yeah. And if you want a fantastic character sort of archetype description, Google Down These Mean Streets, because Raymond Chandler has a fantastic quote on that kind of character. Let's go ahead and turn around and start talking about the thing we're all wanting to talk about because it's just come out, and that's Salvage Mother. This is your new novel with the inimitable Kevin Steverson himself in the Salvage Title universe. Indeed. How did you guys get together and do this story together?
Kevin was incredibly kind to me. So several years ago, gosh, it must have been like 2015. I had this mental image of a young woman running away from a large house that, you know, had some sort of violence or destruction going on in it, hiding two babies under a winter coat in the snow. And that mental image grew into a sci-fi novella that was about, what, like 25,000 words maybe? And this was before I'd ever finished a novel. This was before I think I'd only had like maybe one story published by this time. But I couldn't get this thing out of my head, so I wrote it. And then once I wrote it, I was like, well, what the heck do I do with a 25,000 word sci-fi novella? And so it just sort of sat there. Well, fast forward to this past year, I rediscovered it in the deep, dark corners of my computer archives and read it. And I had read it and was looking at it. I was like, you know, I should figure out what to do with this. And I think at the time, Kevin, maybe like, I think at the time we were talking about Orbital Defense Corps, maybe? I'm not sure. But something Salvage had just come out, and it put me in mind of the Salvage universe, which is this fantastic kind of sandboxy sort of science fiction universe that Kevin has created. And the way that he's created it has made it so that, like, there's almost anything can fit into it. And I reread the novella and looked at the kind of looked at it in the context of, well, would this fit in a Salvage book? And I thought that it would. So I reached out to Kevin and was like, hey man, what would you think if we co-wrote a novel together? I have, this novella that would be like half of the story, and then I would obviously rewrite it and clean it up, and we could work within your universe to make it work. And he came back and he was like, yeah, I love it. Let's do it. And so that's what we did. And it was really, really fun to work with Kevin. He's a consummate professional. He's super patient with me when I would ask him, hey, how does this work in the universe? How does that work in the universe? And it was a great experience. So if any of you ever have the chance to write a novel with Kevin, highly recommended.
Yeah, she when she contacted me, she sent me that message. And I've heard about this message from others. And it starts with, hey. And I thought, oh, let me sit down. Because then it's like, I have an idea.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, my messages that start with hey are apparently that's my tell that I like to throw out there to people.
So now I know what to look for.
Yeah.
So Kevin, which is your favorite character in the book, and why? And if you've got several, go ahead. Tell us about some of the characters.
I mean, I love all the characters. I really love the characters she came up with. I think Siwa reminds me of my wife. She's the nicest person you ever meet. She's always smiling. She's easy, outgoing. But if you cross her family, then you have struck a match to a fireball you do not want to see. I promise you, she will throw hands. So I just love that whole. Anything for the children, to do anything for the children, and there's no limits. So I really love that.
Awesome. How about you, Kacey?
Obviously I love Siva too, right? Like I'm also a mom, and so that savage part of her nature kind of comes from that, mama bear instinct that I think all of us who have children have in some degree or another, but aside from Siva, one of my favorite characters overall in the series is the character of Harmon Tomaral, because he's the kind of guy that I as a career military officer, I see through it a little bit. He's an incredible leader because he doesn't get in his own way and doesn't try to interfere with the experts who know what they're doing. He just kind of points them in the direction. It was like, all right, go do your thing. And that is a secret, I think, to great leadership. I don't know if secret is the right word, but that's a key to great leadership is, when you can look at someone and be like, you're really good at this thing. I'm going to direct you to do your thing in this direction in a way that's going to benefit everybody. Please go do the thing, And
then getting
so that's
out
one
of the
the
way.
things I love about and then getting out of the way, right? Yeah, there was a quote I had to memorize in college, and of course now, I'm not sure. I'm going to mess it up and everything, but it basically boiled down to never tell someone how to do something. Tell them what you want them to do, and then let them amaze you with their brilliance. It's very true. That's very much Harmon's operating methodology, and I appreciate that.
Nice. So, working in a collaboration, I've only started dabbling in a collaboration. You and I have talked, of course, and we've got some ideas, and then we got busy. Shocking that, but collaborating is a different beast. Were there any arguments, debates, hiccups along the way, and if so, how did you work through those?
Well, Kevin might tell you something differently, but from my perspective, no. As I said before, Kevin's really, he's done a really good job with setting up the universe and outlining the parameters of what's allowed and what's not allowed. And then within those parameters, much like Harmon, he's smart enough to, kind of be like, all right, do your thing. I'm going to let you do your thing, and then we'll go from there. So we didn't have any, certainly no arguments. There were a couple times when I had a question or needed clarification, and he was always super quick to respond. I think for me, like, the biggest challenge that I have in collaborations in general right now is the fact that I live in Japan. And so having real-time conversation with my collaboration partners is difficult. However, Kevin is nocturnal, so that actually worked in our favor during this project.
Exactly.
Because whenever I was awake in my afternoon, it's like 3 a.m. He's like, cool, I'm just gonna answer a couple questions and send you a quick scene before I go to bed. And I'm like, gosh, man, like, when do you sleep? I will say though, the funniest thing was we had the story done pretty much. It was all put together. His scenes were integrated with my scenes. And I sent him the manuscript, and he comes back to me. He's like, all right, it's really good. One thing, though, you have got to remove all of these F-bombs. And I'm like, oh, sorry, dude.
Yeah. You don't need it. I was going to say you don't need an F-bomb in stories. Occasionally a character, that's the type of character it is, and it's really hard to write anything military, even military sci-fi, without using those, because that's how soldiers, airmen, corpsmen, navy, that's how they speak. Those are the adjectives. Talk, yeah. Those are the adjectives. Those are the adverbs. Whatever. It's just it is. So, but I try to avoid that because I've had a lot of reviews, even when the first Salvage title book come out, where this is almost young adult, but it's not young adult. But I don't mind letting my 15-year-old read this. And when you start receiving some of those from 35-year-old men and 40-year-old women or whatever, it's like, okay, I need to keep that. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I was happy to do it. It was just funny because it was like, like Kevin said, it's just, especially for those of us with a military background, it's almost a verbal pause, right? Like swear words in general they're just sort of part of the vocabulary, and I did not realize how often I was including them.
So you've done a goodly amount of stuff, and you got this whole helicopter thing. That means you're taking a break now, right? Not working on anything at the moment, right?
Oh no, not at all. Marisa Wolf and I are currently pushing hard to finish Ally, which will be the third Depic novel in the Four Horsemen universe. And then as soon as that's done, I'm turning my attention to Skies to Conquer, my Vietnam story that I mentioned before, and trying to get that finished. I hesitate to say it because I don't want to jinx myself, but trying to get that finished before the end of the year so that I can round that series out and get that out as a completed trilogy. So. And
there's that fantasy thing you started with David.
Yes. Yeah. I have no idea when we're going to work on that. So
I just had to get that dig in as the new mythology publisher.
Yeah, for sure. It'll happen someday. My buddy Dave Shadoin and I wrote a pair of fantasy stories for the Talons and Talismans anthology published by New Mythology, or that will be published by New Mythology. And
2 weeks.
Yes, really, so soon. That's exciting.
October 5th.
Yay! That's so fun. So these two characters we really like, and we would like to do more with. To include, we're playing with ideas, plotting, and plans for potentially a novel or 2 or 3 down the line. So we'll see.
All right. Well, thanks for putting up with all those questions. I appreciate it. However, I believe Ian, he wants to grill you like the Romans did with St. Lawrence with his 2-minute drill. So I'm going to turn you over to him.
He managed to get the line in there. He's had that one in his back pocket, the Roman thing, for like 3 weeks. He's like, I'm saving that for the Kacey interview. I'm saving it for the Kacey. Okay, dude, you and your Romans just hang tight.
I mean, my nickname's not Dragon for nothing, so bring it, man.
The 2-minute drill.
All right, quick answers. That's how this is done. Preferred background noise when writing, music or silence?
Music that matches the mood of the piece I'm working.
Okay, real quick, give me an example.
For my Vietnam story, I'm listening to a lot of Rolling Stones, a lot of Jim Morrison, that era type of music.
Nice, very nice. I see you. All right, next question.
Yep.
Better song to blare through helicopter speakers when flying into battle. Ride of the Valkyries by Wagner, Thunderstruck by AC/DC, or Dragon Attack by Queen?
Wagner, always.
Yeah, I kind of figured you'd say that. All right, next question. It's Sunday morning at LibertyCon, and you've got a 9 a.m. panel. What's the go-to hangover remedy? Waffle House breakfast, a greasy biscuit with coffee, or cold pizza from the night before?
Ooh, Waffle House breakfast, but since we're talking LibertyCon, I'd actually go to City Cafe and grab their their waffles with ice cream.
Nice. Yeah, Eikenberry told me about that
amazing.
place. Yeah, man, that's like 3 plugs. Apparently, we all have to go to City Cafe, man. All right.
So good.
It's done. June. Booked. Be there, be square. Okay, next question. Best 90s guilty pleasure band. The Goo Goo Dolls, Creed, Blink-182, Matchbox 20, or Third Eye Blind?
Blink-182.
Okay. All right. Yep. Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. Still a great album. Even though it's quickly as all hell, it's still good stuff. All righty. Tougher ally in a bar fight against a gaggle of unruly zombies. John Ringo or Larry Correia?
Larry Correia.
Yeah, I would have gone that route myself. That's a big dude right there.
I mean, the man is 6'5", right? Like,
True story. Ringo's got a lot of guns, though, too. I know Correia's a gun guy, but either one of them, I'm fairly sure they'd have your back, no problem. All right, next question is preferred setting for max writing productivity. At home in a familiar, comfy chair, or on the go to keep things fresh and innovative?
at home, because I'm kind of, I get distracted, so.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. My office chair is my sanctuary when it comes to writing for a whole lot of different reasons. Okay, next question. You are marooned on a desert island with nothing but a TV, a VCR, and rerun tapes from any one of the following classic 80s television series. Knight Rider, The A-Team, Magnum P.I., Miami Vice, or 21 Jump Street. What are you watching until help arrives?
If I can only have one, it's Magnum P.I. If I can have two, it's Magnum P.I. and The A-Team.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention that both are available for free on the Roku channel today. Both are favorites of mine. So, yeah, food for thought. Pro tip, everybody. Write it down. All right, and final question I have for you here on the 2-minute drill because you've been awesome. Which of the major life events on the Kacey Ezell bucket list was a bigger affair? Becoming a published author by Baen Books or being a guest interview on the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast?
Ooh.
You better answer this one right.
True story.
So when I was first published by Baen Books, I was in the middle of a year-long deployment to Iraq. And so surviving that experience and gaining all that's all like rolled up together, right? So maybe this is a cheap answer, but that whole year was one of my bucket list experiences. So
hey man, no, anytime you can put Baen Books on your resume, that is not a bad way to go. So we are not offended here.
I was going to say that is the right answer.
That is very much the right answer. Yes.
When I got the email back from Kacey and Larry that they'd accepted the story for No Game for Knights, I was shrieking with joy, and that's really not an exaggeration. So totally get that.
Yep. All righty. Kacey Ezell, it has been an absolute treat to have you on the show. Before we let you get out of here, this is the part where we let you plug your stuff. So website information, social media information, where can people find you if they want to know more about you and your books?
Yeah, thank you. So my website is www.kaceyezell.net. It's KACEYEZELL.net. Recently revamped, so new slick look, pretty excited about it. On my website, if you scroll down on that first page or follow the link that says short stories at the top, you can sign up for my free stories at the top. You can sign up for my newsletter, and by signing up for my newsletter, you get weekly emails from me that, just kind of updates on what's going on, what I'm doing, cool books that are coming out, and also a link to my private Discord channel, or I shouldn't say private, but my exclusive Discord channel. And that is my favorite place to hang out with my friends and fans and just kind of connect online. This past year has really, I guess 18 months now, has really sort of highlighted to me the importance of connection in people's lives, and particularly in my life. And so that's something that I'm really trying to foster, is a sense of community and just overall connection with people. So that's how I'm trying to do it. So come connect with me by going to my website, signing up for my newsletter, and joining my Discord channel and chatting. Well, we like to talk about creativity in general, and what kinds of caffeine do you like, and what's your favorite song, just all kinds of stuff like that. In addition to that, you can also find me on Facebook at Kacey Ezell, and on Instagram at Kacey Ezell. And those accounts are mostly like new releases, and I'll show cover art and stuff like that on there. In addition, I'm also moderately active in the Four Horsemen groups on Facebook, if you are a Facebook preferred user type person. So, yeah.
All righty, sweet. Well, thanks for coming on by. Everybody go out and grab yourself a copy of Salvage Mother. It is out today in ebook and paperback formats, coming soon to audio, and it's a beautiful thing, man. Great books, great series, great authors. You guys rock. Keep it up, and we'll see you next time here on the show. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, that's going to bring us down to our halftime segment, where we run down the latest and greatest in news and notes from the wonderful world of Chris Kennedy Publishing. As mentioned from the interview, the big release this week is Salvage Mother from Kacey Ezell and Kevin Steverson, and we just happen to have one of the authors hanging out with us as a regular part of this here program. So, Kevin, I'll tell you what, we're going to switch things up a little bit this week. Since this is your book, you read the blurb. You know these characters, you know this story, you know this world, and I don't think anybody could do it better. So you handle that, and then, Rob, you can knock out some reviews. Y'all good with that?
Got it.
Sounds good.
All right, Kevin, tell me about Salvage Mother, man.
Across the galaxy, hell hath no fury like a mother protecting her young, no matter the race. Harmon Tomarol and the crew of Salvage Title embark on an exploration of an anonymous system discovered by young Barut. Unlike the vast majority of gated systems, this one was not on the list of coordinates publicly available on the Galactic Network. Meanwhile, Siva, a fighter pilot and new mother in a binary system on the edge of the galaxy, is forced to make a decision. She chooses to do what it takes to save her babies, at all cost. With Salvage Fleet repaired and growing, training is ongoing for the newest fleet members. Salvage system is quiet, and its allies are experiencing the same. So Harmon decides a little old-fashioned salvaging is called for. An unknown system with no gate usage in centuries. What could go wrong?
Rob, what do we got for reviews?
Dano, and I have to say it, book him, Dano. Dano says, Mama Bear has nothing on Siva. The heroine would do anything for her babies. She would travel to the ends of her galaxy to protect them. Excellent addition to the Salvage Coalition. she will fit right in with this unique family. And I expect I'll probably get, some sort of mean, nasty message from Dano. But it was worth it. Joe says, this was well written, exciting, and personal. What's not to like? It's a Salvage Universe book. I loved it. Kindle customer said, I really like all the books in the Salvage Universe, and this is one of the good ones. Can't save the universe, but one planet at a time. Thank you for the great ride so far.
Awesome. Well, other stuff happening around the CKP universe this week would be Prodigal Son by Matt Novotny and Mark Stallings is now available in audiobook format. For you folks who are out there like me, you like the audio stuff on Audible, iBooks, etc., you can now get that. It just came out 21st, I believe it was. This is book 5 in the 4HU's Rise of the Peacemakers series, which is just now building to a crescendo. That's going to be coming to a close here in a couple of books. And from what I understand, folks, there's a lot of stuff going on in that series. So Peacemaker fans, saddle up, man. It's all yours. Prodigal Son, book 5 in that series, Rise of Peacemakers. Yeah, it's out on Audible. In other news, what do we got here? Rob Howell. Dano, listen up, buddy. I'm about to give you some important information. Rob Howell is looking for some early readers for some of the new projects that are coming out at New Mythology Press. So if you are a fantasy fan, named Dano or otherwise, shoot him an email. His address is as follows. Dano, Rob at robhowell.org. Again, to be clear, that is Rob at robhowell.org. That's ROBHOWELL.org. Dano, hope you're paying attention at home. And then finally,
thanks, Ian.
I did what I can.
Thanks for having my back, baby.
Brother, I'm here for you. That's the way we roll. I'm here for you. All right, and then finally, launch team members are needed this week for And Then It Got Weird, an anthology of paranormal peculiarities. Dude, I got through that word without stuttering. That's awesome. This is edited by Jamie Ibsen, and it releases on October 22nd. So if you like fun short stories about horror and the like, and just weird paranormal stuff, then this is an anthology that is definitely for you. Go to chriskennedypublishing.com, fire Chris an email via the contact form. Let him know that you're interested in signing up to become an advanced reader on that one. And again, comes out October 22nd, but you can read it now. So never a bad way to go.
Hey, I got one in that book.
Yeah.
It was. I had a great time writing it. I really did. So I can't push that anthology enough.
I saved my and then it got weird enthusiasm for the story I did for Kevin, I have to say. That was full of whimsy for me, and so that's where I put that one.
Sweet. Well, I think that transitions us nicely into kind of our open segment, which is where we talk about pretty much anything we want. If there's project news, things going on, updates we want to pass along to readers, updated con schedules, pretty much anything that's happening in our world as writers, this is kind of where we spew it. So, Kevin, you're the man of the hour because you're the one with a brand new book out. I know there's tons of stuff happening in your world these days. Books. Yeah, 2 brand new books out. Yeah, most definitely. So I'm going to throw you the floor first, man. What's happening? What do you want to tell people about in the open segment?
We just had an anthology. It takes all kinds in Salvage Universe, and then Salvage Mother came out. But in the last 5 or 6 weeks, I have turned in no less than 6 short stories in different directions. So those books will be coming, with Mythology Press. And then it got weird, and then I've got another short story in the next Salvage anthology, and it just keeps going.
That gets back to that whole nocturnal thing that Kacey was talking about.
Oh yeah, I'm up all night doing a lot of writing. I looked at that the other day, and I don't know, I should not have looked. Now I am more tired than I was, because in the last 3 years, and I've been published 3 years, September 2018, in the last 3 years it's been 9 novels and 26 completed short stories.
Ooh, holy smokes, man.
Yeah.
That's a lot of writing. And then, by the way, you manage a band.
Yeah, and then we got that going on, and then dealing with some other things. Now, the other life stuff or projects or whatever you want to call it, on the 3rd of October, I will be at Hideout Productions for their after party for the domestic release of the movie Old Henry. So, I got that invite. Of course, I accepted. Who wouldn't?
Nice.
So I'll be there, and I'll be able to kick it with the people in the movie, the directors and the actors and all that kind of thing. But really, I really think the main reason I'm going up there is because I'll get more information on the salvage title movie that's going to be coming out, because I'll know where they are on the script, whether it's completed with where they're at right now, but it is in pre-production. So
cool. Rob, what's going on with you, man?
Well, for me, it's a lot of new mythology stuff of late. Talons and Talismans is in the can. That's the first one. The second one I'm working on and we'll finish next week probably. The House Between Worlds, we've got that pretty much ready to go. I hope to finish that this weekend and get it ready for Chris to put up. It's going to come out on the 19th. The 5th of October is the first Talons and Talismans, then The House Between Worlds. That's the 4th of John R. Osborne's Milesian Accords. And then there's on the 2nd of November, that will be the second Talons and Talismans. And along the way, I've been doing a bunch of writing myself. I've got a short story coming out with Three Ravens Press. It came from the trailer park. That's coming out around end of October, around Halloween. And a little bit of a horror, a little bit of a zombie, and a little bit of redneck. And I got the red shirt buddy of mine. I can't wait for him to see if he recognizes himself. And then let's see. Oh yeah, then there's all this Eldritch Legacy stuff I'm writing. I'm in the novel. I'm starting to make major progress in The Door into Winter, which will be my first novel in the Eldritch Legacy per se, and which is coming out in April. But we're doing really well with Kevin the Unkillable coming out in December. Seeds of Dominion is well on its way. That's by Quincy Allen in January. So lots of stuff happening in my world, and I'm really excited to see some of the things that we've done in the Eldritch Legacy especially, but also throughout New Mythology. It's taken a while. It's taken about 6-7 months for me to sort of build it up to where we can be consistent about our production and make sure that we're doing things right. And we're about, now that we get to October, we're about to see these things really come into fruition. And I can't tell you how excited I am.
Nice. Yeah, it was fun to sit around with you at Lasers and Loggers back over the summer and hear about all of the stuff that's happening with new mythology. I mean, a lot of these projects have been in the works now for 5, 6, 7, 8 months. And I got to tell you, folks, Rob has put a lot of time and a lot of work into this. And once this thing gets off the launching pad, buckle up, because New Mythology Press, there are big things happening over there for fantasy fans. In my neck of the woods, really, it's just been a lot of house logistics stuff. Like I said on our last episode, I'm kind of on a little bit of a hiatus right now from writing. We managed to get 3 Steps to Oblivion turned in. That has been scheduled for a Black Friday release, so November the 26th, that's going to be coming at you. That's the penultimate book in the Guild Wars series, and then Mark and Chris will tie up the Guild Wars after that. In the meantime, did find out that the Street Survivors will drop in audio October the 19th, so if you were a fan of audiobooks, then you can catch up with that one there. I want to say thanks real quick to everybody who's left a review for that. I was on Amazon just yesterday. Saw where Street Survivors is already over 105 reviews. So that is by far the fastest I've ever had a book get past 100 reviews. And guys, you hear this from authors all the time, not because it's a talking point, but because it is the honest freaking truth. And that is that reviews make or break us as not just writers, but professionals. So when you guys take a minute to go on there and leave a 5-star rating or, a 2 or 3, 4 sentence review, we really, really appreciate that. So thanks to everybody who's done that for Street Survivors. One thing that I have been able to do over the last couple of weeks, which has really been a refreshing thing for me, I didn't have a whole lot of time to do it really from about March on, is reading. I just wrapped up Dave Mustaine's autobiography. That's the lead singer from Megadeth. You guys know I'm a rock guy. And that was quite the eye-opener for old school metalhead fans from the 80s era. Man, that's a guy who's probably going to go to his grave pissed off that he didn't get to see it through with Metallica. But really an interesting story about a guy who definitely lived the rock lifestyle of sex, drugs, rock and roll, and debauchery, and then really had it all turned on its head one day in rehab when he woke up in a chair and said, "I'm a guitar player and I can't feel my arm." That was a problem. So very interesting read. It's called Mustaine. You can find it pretty well anywhere books are sold, or audiobooks in my case. Next book I've started, and I just started this one the other morning. This one might be a particular interest for the authorly crowd who listens to this show. It's a book called Take Back Your Time. And it's from Christy Wright, who is one of the Dave Ramsey Solutions folks. She's a small business pro. That's kind of what she does. She travels the country talking to small business owners about how to really become successful and practices that they can implement to really grow their businesses. And a lot of that centers around learning how to budget your time. And I'm decent at that, but I wouldn't fancy myself anywhere as efficient as somebody like Rob or Chris Kennedy. That's something I felt like I needed a lot of help with. And so Take Back Your Time is a quick 4-hour audiobook read with a lot of really good, tangible action step type stuff to help you identify your priorities, in our case as writers and as publishers, to be able to find and target the things that need to be done now with an eye toward the things that are going to happen down the line, and all the while still meeting the goals that you want to meet as an organization from top to bottom. So very plain language stuff, to use a buzzword, very applicable. Again, just lots of good quality action steps. Even comes with a workbook if you want it, that helps you kind of run through some of the stuff that she talks about. But again, that's Take Back Your Time from Christy Wright, and so far really enjoying that one. So, okay, that's what's happening in our world, open segment, so on and so forth. Now it's time to hear what you guys had to say in this week's edition of Pod Mail.
You've got mail.
Okay, first question comes to us from Bernard. With 2 weeks behind us now in the 2021 NFL season, we finally got a reasonable sample size from which to discern who's legit and who was probably a little bit overrated coming into the season. In you guys' opinion, what have been the big storylines so far in the new NFL year? Rob, you're Mr. Professor on the NFL, so I'll give you lead dibs on that, man. What are you seeing in the NFL after 2 weeks that has your eyebrow raised?
Well, first of all, I'd have to say I just want to... 2 games, 2 weeks is not a good sample size. In fact, one could argue from a true statistical analysis perspective that with only 17 games and with only something like 1,100 plays, there really aren't enough to have a good sample. I got in a conversation on a baseball player and with one of the big stat guys, and he said 2,000 at-bats per side is about when they get to see the sample size balance out. So I have a quibble there, but I do think we can get some things from this that lead us to some ideas here. First of all, the first week is always a weird anomaly. You get the games like the Packers getting destroyed by the Saints, and Teddy Bridgewater came back to ground against the Panthers, who were doing some interesting things. But they're the kinds of things on what they were doing aren't something that should have bothered a quarterback of that experience as much as they did. It's not the first time he's seen double linebackers in the A gap, and that particular formation really bothered him. So I would say that the Saints, we can tell right now that the Saints and the Falcons are not going to win the NFC South. We can tell that the Bucks are. We can tell that the Panthers aren't going to go very far right now, but there are some reasons for optimism. If you go around the league, I think you can make a great case for what's up with the Chiefs, especially their run defense. Their run defense has been awful. Admittedly, again, we're talking small sample size, but if the Chiefs' run defense is as bad as it has been, then I don't know that they're going to be. I mean, that offense is still lights out. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is still the best quarterback there is, and they're going to score forever. But they're going to be in close games. They were in a bunch of close games last year, and unfortunately, we know from statistical analysis that if you're in close games, about half of those are going to work against you. And, for example, the Cowboys have been in 2 close games, and you could say that each game, went on one play each game, and the Cowboys happened to win one and happened to lose one, which is about right. Honestly, I was really impressed with the San Diego Chargers. Justin Herbert is a top-notch quarterback. He's not Patrick Mahomes, but he's certainly not a quarterback to keep your, to ignore. And I think also you might see some, there's a lot of people talking about how good the LA Rams have been. And honestly, I've still got to see Michael Stafford go through a few more games before I'm ready to anoint him. But I do think that that's a team also we can watch out for.
Hate it for Cam Akers on that team. Rookie running back last year was a contender for Rookie of the Year, blew out his knee prior to the season. He's ex-Florida State guy. He was a guy who played, and I promise I'm not going to turn this into a Florida State segment, guys, because I have nothing to talk about on that front right now that's anything remotely good. But the one thing I will say about Cam Akers is he was there these last couple of years at Florida State when we were a butt-sorry team with the worst offensive line in the history of college football, and he still played his guts out. And so for a lot of Noles, it was really great to see him go to a team like the Rams where we knew, okay, he's going to have firepower around him. He's going to really have a chance to succeed there. And when he blew out his knee, hated to see that for a guy like that. But he'll be back. Nobody will outwork that kid.
So if I'm going to shorten this up and do a quick run around, I think the 49ers are going to win the West. And all of this is, of course, barring injury. I think the Packers are going to win the North. I think they're significantly better than the Vikings, who have actually had some bad luck, but I do think they're better. I think the Cowboys are winning the East. Washington might have had an argument, but with Fitzpatrick gone, and also their defensive line hasn't played as well as expected. And then in the South, I've already gone over. It looks to me the Bills clearly the top of the line in the AFC East. I think the Titans are looking pretty solid in the NFC or in the AFC South. And boy, has the Carson Wentz experiment in Indianapolis been awful, and it's not entirely his fault, but yeesh, that's looked bad so far.
Yep.
And then, I do think the Chiefs will win the West, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a lot closer than people expect. If they're the team that has the bye in the first round, because remember we only have one team this year, I'm not sure I would say that's automatically the case. And if going into the year, I would have said Chiefs automatically. And finally, the AFC North. I'm sorry, Casey, but the Steelers are going to be bad this year. Roethlisberger doesn't have it, and they did they just don't have enough depth in a lot of positions. So I think it's going to be a very interesting race between the Browns and the Ravens in that division. So there's my not too short breakdown of what I've seen so far.
Kevin, how about you, man? Any big stories in the NFL after 2 weeks that kind of have your haunches up?
Well, I mean, it's obviously, you got that quarterback down in Tampa that's playing like he's 28 years old. Somebody needs to look into that guy. We talked fantasy earlier, and I do believe, I'm almost positive the guy's half elf.
It's all about the TB12 space blanket, buddy. That's it. I'm sure there's some essential oils in there too, and so some protein powders that the fountain of youth type stuff.
Something. That guy's half elven with a lifespan of 150 years. I don't know what's going on.
It's certainly impressive, no doubt.
Yeah, but I think another big story, and I don't know that it's a big storyline. I am so glad that a UGA graduate, Matt Stafford, actually went to a team that can offer him some protection. I mean, the guy's sitting on a 127 quarterback rating. 5 touchdowns. He has 1 interception. He's thrown for 599 yards in 2 games. You know what I mean? Sure. So we're not going to get the Archie Manning, or we're not going to get the you can name half a dozen quarterbacks that were great their whole career but didn't have any support.
Sure.
You go down to Miami and come on, Dan Marino. So I that team may be a surprise, and we'll find out this weekend because guess who they play? Tampa.
Mm-hmm. Showing.
So,
gonna be interesting.
Yeah, and then the other thing that I mentioned this our last podcast. There's some receivers that are standing out on the Falcons, even though they're not winning. There's some receivers standing out on the Falcons, and once again, that common denominator is Matt Ryan. Because look what happened with Julio Jones up in Tennessee. I ain't heard too much about him.
Mm-hmm. I think the big story that's kind of got me a little, not surprised, because we talked about this in the preview with Nick Gurley of the Right on Sports podcast. Good Lord, has the Urban Meyer experiment down in Jacksonville seemingly failed in epic proportion. I mean, there are already legitimate national reports that this guy might not make it through his first season before he checks out. Like, he's already apparently pissing off staff members behind the scenes. People in the organization don't like working with him because he's too gruff and he's too mercurial about the way he handles staff and personnel. And apparently it's just going bad down there, man. So I love making, anybody who knows me loves, I love making jokes at Urban Meyer's expense. I'm not very fond of him as a coach or person for that matter. But you know, I mean, good Lord, how much crap can the city of Jacksonville and that franchise and that fan base take? They are a running joke. And right now it looks like they're on tap to continue the trend. And it sucks, man. I mean, it really, really does suck. I listen to a lot of sports radio from down in that part of the country, and those people deserve a winner. And I'm not going to root for them as long as Urban's in town and is the head coach. But, you know, if they were to win, I'm happy for the people, for crap's sake, man.
Don't they have a winner in Jacksonville State?
Oh, that's just not even right, man.
Yeah, that's outstanding.
That's absolutely wrong.
That touches on something. How many college coaches, successful college coaches, make that leap to the NFL? Because even Nick Saban tried it. And what he found out, and what they find out is, you know, when you're a college coach, a big Division I team, you win a championships or whatever, what you say goes, period. The athletic director leaves you alone. The dean of the college leaves you alone. You are it, the end-all, be-all, your decision, done. Staffing, coaches, hiring, players, do what you're supposed to. I'll bench you. Yeah, you got a scholarship. You'll never see the field. You cannot do that in the NFL.
Right.
Because the owner paid this guy $14 million a year. Yes, he is playing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that control that coaches have in college absolutely does not translate over to the NFL.
It would. I mean, the first person that comes to mind for me on that front that did it well was Pete Carroll. I mean, he's obviously made the transition. He was a horrible NFL coach to start.
Yeah, I was going to point out
he took his
failed.
lumps. Yeah, he took his lumps and then came back and figured it out. So, you know.
I think one of the big things you have to look at here is that in college, there is a huge disparity between the top of the line and the bottom of the line, even within Division I or the Bowl Series. And, you know, Alabama, I mean, this is no knock on Nick Saban. He's a great coach because Alabama players have come out in the NFL and done well and have been trained well. But he's got the advantage of having that talent base that, you know, a lot of other coaches haven't. And Urban Meyer benefited from a fantastic talent base at Ohio State. In the NFL, we're talking margins. The difference between the Jaguars and the Buccaneers is actually, talent-wise, a lot smaller than I think people realize. The difference is tiny margin stuff. It's one of the reasons why Brady's been so good is because he's gotten brilliant. He's a genius at getting the tiny little margins to go in his fashion, or go in his way. And in college coaches, they can bludgeon the opposing team sometimes. You can never count on that in the NFL.
Yep. No, I wholly agree. All right, next question comes to us from Kate. Thanks to Ian for sharing the Matrix Resurrections trailer on Twitter. I've got to admit, it looks pretty sweet in a slow-mo, high-action, Matrix-y sort of way. Having said that, so did the trailers for Reloaded and Revolutions, and both of those films were garbage. What's your take on the new Matrix film now that we actually have a first look? I mean, I'm with you on that. Look like a Matrix movie. Absolutely. In every way, shape, or form. Look like a Matrix film. It's going to come down to the story as to whether or not it's any good. We've seen it. I mean, I remember sitting in the theater for the first Matrix film in 1999, and we were all waiting for the first Star Wars film. You know, Star Wars was set to come out, I think it was Labor Day, Memorial Day weekend, and they dumped the Matrix out in March, just ahead of the big summer blockbuster season. And so it faced no competition. And everybody went to go see it, and we were completely blown away by what it was. And it was film of the year, particularly for sci-fi fans. You can only capture that lightning in a bottle one time. They failed in spectacular fashion to do that for the two sequels. It's been a few years. A lot of things have changed. I think Keanu Reeves is a better actor now than he was 25 years ago. Everybody gets better in the craft, and he's no different. So it'll be interesting to see what they come back with on this, but I think you hit the nail on the head. It is going to come back to story as to whether or not this is worth our time or not. Robert, Kevin, either one of you guys Matrix guys back in the day? If so, what'd you think about this?
My take on the Matrix was the first one was great and the other ones were meh. Watching the trailer, I wonder if they are smart enough. They certainly looked like they were going back home. Like there was a lot of going back home ideas. And the other two, I didn't really think they had any, like they were, okay, we just need to do these action shots and the characters aren't as important. We just need to have the bullets and the dancing and I mean not dancing, but the posing if the bullets pass and those kinds of things. And this looked like it had some character, the way Neo is, and I'm blanking on the heroines' names, but some
Trinity.
of the ways that they showed Trinity. There we go. And if they can go back home and have it be about those characters connecting to each other, then there's a real good chance. If they don't, well, they spent a lot of money.
True that. Kevin, Matrix, any thoughts?
I'm not. I never was really a big fan after the first movie. The next two didn't really hold my interest. It's more of the same slow motion, bullets flying, lean way back. Come on.
Yep. Oh, yeah. So. No, I could not agree with that more. Going to be interesting. All right, next question comes to us from Kyle. Okay, Malone, let's hear it. Now that the 2022 NASCAR schedule is out, have you had a chance or have you had some time to absorb all of the changes, most notably the LA Coliseum race? I, for one, think it's a great move from the sport. Also, what are your thoughts on the Harvick-Elliott feud coming out of Bristol?
Oh my God, I'm stepping away.
Yeah.
Ian, you have the floor.
Yeah, well, we should probably do this as an on the stump thing for like at least 2 shows. I'll try not to take over here. So first things first on the LA Coliseum thing, I don't hate the concept. Okay. I mean, listen, if you can recreate Bowman Gray Stadium in a football stadium, a big time, big market football stadium, I'm not against that as long as the racing is good because it certainly wasn't the last time you tried one of these gimmicks last spring with dirt on Bristol. It wasn't good. It was gimmicky. It was stupid. If you fall flat on your face like that, then this is a waste of time. If you can make the racing decent, then I'm okay with it. My big issue with it is doing it in Los Angeles. I get that LA is right there with New York is the biggest media market in the country. I get why it makes sense for the National Football League to be there and the NBA and Major League Baseball and the National Hockey League, all of your major sports. It doesn't make sense for NASCAR to go through as much trouble as it's going to cost to go there because the fans are not going to show out. They're just not. You're never going to make NASCAR a mainstream sport in Los Angeles, California. There's too much going on there between the entertainment world and other sporting options. It's like I said on the last show, people might show up for one race. We're going to show up at the circus, watch the monkeys throw poo at each other, and then we're going to be over it because we've seen the thing. Kind of like The Matrix. You saw it one time, you saw the show, over it, pretty much seen it, been there, done that. That's the way LA NASCAR fans, LA race fans are. You have the niche core of people who will show up for a NASCAR race, just the same way you have the same niche core who will show up for the Grand Prix of Long Beach or sports car races. Motorsports does have a crowd in California. It just doesn't have a crowd that's big enough to go through this kind of colossal endeavor. Not to mention the fact you're asking all of your teams and your crews and everybody else to drive all the way across country to LA to put this thing on, only to drive right back down to Florida to be there for Daytona and the 500 the following weekend or 2 weekends later, because this is going to happen before the Super Bowl. I think it's too much. My thought on this was if you wanted to spruce up the Clash and you wanted to try the football thing, the football stadium thing with the temporary track, run the Clash at a short track in Florida that makes it easy access to Daytona. All right, New Smyrna Beach, Five Flags Speedway, and Pensacola would be the first 2 things I would look at. Those are historic tracks. All right, diehard fans will love those shows. They'll put on great races, and logistically, it makes it a world easier for the teams. If you want to try the football stadium thing, do it at the All-Star race, which has been stale for years now. All right, beyond stale. Try it there. And don't do it in LA. Do it in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, or Neyland Stadium in Knoxville, Tennessee. The young Southeastern Conference crowd should be the NASCAR core. That should be their target. That's who they should be going after. It's not going to happen in LA, but it will happen in the Southeast. That's just my one, to borrow Rob's term, not short answer for that. As far as the Harvick-Elliott feud coming out of Bristol, I mean, it was what it was. I frankly thought it was Elliott being a punk. I get it. He was pissed off. He threw a temper tantrum. He jumped back out on the track, jumped in front of Harvick, squatted on him essentially so that Larson could close the gap, take the win. I don't understand why he's angry. This is Bristol. Physical racing has been a hallmark of NASCAR racing now for the last couple of years in particular because of the aero package they're running. Nowhere even more so than Bristol. It's freaking Bristol. It's hard. It's physical. People beat and bang into each other. You're fighting for the win with a guy who hasn't won yet this year. All right? He bumped you. He roughed you up a little bit. Put on your big boy pants, all right, and let's do this. But he's Chase Elliott, and he's the Wonder Boy. He's NASCAR's crown prince, who pretty well gets to come and go as he pleases. All right? He's the most popular driver in NASCAR. Always the first guy out to skip autographs, hop on his private plane, fly back to Dawsonville. Okay? That's Chase Elliott. Nothing against him. That's his prerogative. If he wants to do that, that's fine. But I frankly thought this was kind of a punk move to do that. You got beat. I get it that it was a little hardcore, it was a little physical, but it's Bristol. Let's all put on our big boy pants and roll on and realize that this is how racing is, particularly at this track. So that is my spiel on those two particular items. Kevin, I should probably ask you, what did you think about that? Because I pretty well just ripped your boy a new one.
Listen. It wasn't just Bristol. It has been an ongoing thing, and that is what Harvick does. He cuts down tires. You know it. I know it. He did not drift and cut down that tire. He turned and cut down that tire. Okay?
He's racing for the win at Bristol. What you gonna do, man?
You rubbing is racing. Turning to cut a tire deliberately is not rubbing. Okay.
How do you know he turned to cut down the tire?
Because I slowed it down and watched it in slow motion on my TV and the front of the car turned into it. It didn't drift. When you drift, your whole car slides. When you turn, the front goes. He turned into him. I saw what I saw. Okay. But it's not the first time Harvick has done that, because that is one of his things. He will cut down a tire.
It's also not the first time that Chase Elliott has wrecked anybody. Lest we forget his first win in his Xfinity career. I'm pretty sure he wrecked a guy on a road course. He's turned plenty of people, most notably, I think, Joey Logano has thrown some sparks there. Chase has no problems getting physical when he's the one running second and he wants the win. But when it's done to him, he's going to cry.
But at the same time, Harvick should have went around him. I hate it for him. What do you mean he couldn't go around him? That's racing.
Well, but I mean, at that point, he knows running second, he's locked into the round of 12. And if you try something to extract vengeance on this guy, you could end up wrecking the both of them. You could wreck yourself. And he was not in a position to be able to risk that as much as he did. But you can rest assured, moving forward, if he gets a chance to run Chase over, it's going to happen. Oh, yeah. It's gonna happen. And NASCAR is loving this.
Both of them, and it's probably going to take that involved because they're both going to start doing it. So yeah, something's going to happen. But he didn't drift up. He actually turned into that tire. So I mean, that's
Okay, well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, man.
Yes or no? Yeah, but it's what I saw.
All right, next question comes from Derek. When is the next Salvage book coming? Next month, right? Maybe 2 months? No rush or anything. Asking for a friend. Thanks for your question, Derek.
An anthology November 1st and a novel November 5th. Matt Novotny's first novel, Nest of Stars. It's a really good book. So those are coming.
All righty. Final question comes to us from Martin. Hey, guys. First off, I'd like to thank you for making my commute back and forth to Orlando much more palatable every couple of weeks when you put out a new episode. It takes me about an hour each way, and this certainly makes the drive a whole lot easier, so thank you. Appreciate the kind words on that, Martin. My question is this. If I had to pick one social network to follow you guys on, what would it be? I hear Ian mention Facebook and Twitter quite a bit, but I also hear Rob mention MeWe from time to time and something called Discord. I'm 53 years old. I want one social network to manage. So that said, where should I find you guys? Thanks for taking my question and stay awesome. I mean, you can't go wrong with being in the CKP groups on Facebook. So again, that's CKP Factory Floor. We're all three very active in that. If you want more of a Four Horsemen centric thing, then you can't go wrong with the 4HU Merc Guild group. That's going to be Chris, Mark Wandry, Kevin Eikenberry, Kacey Ezell. All of your big core people are pretty active in that one. I mean, for individuals, I think it's going to vary for all three of us. For me, I'm most active on Twitter because it's just easier for me. I've mentioned this before. I'm legally blind. So as much as I try and do Instagram, it's a platform made of pictures. And unless I'm on a computer at home on my 32-inch monitor, I don't have a clue what I'm doing there. And Instagram is not one that's very familiar to a desktop interface. So I have a lot of challenges with Instagram, and that's one reason why I'm not over there terribly often. Facebook has become such an animal with all of its different arms. You've got your Facebook personal account, you've got your page, you've got events, you've got groups, you've got marketplace, you've got all these different things, and that poses challenges for me. So I'm on Facebook. Definitely try and post on there every couple of days on my author page at IGM Books. But if you want me, Twitter is by far the easiest place to find me, and that is where I'm most active, because I enjoy the content. I like hot takes and information. And for me personally, it's just the easiest social network to use via a mobile device. Rob, you're fairly prolific social media guy. What's your take on this guy's question?
If I had one to pick, I'm going to go with the one Kacey pointed out, and that's Discord. The reason I say that is because I think it's a better community. The way it's structured is to put people who have like-minded interests into groups. And while that does sometimes lead us into, conflicts within groups, the truth is that you get a sense of community if you're all talking about, like if it's, my fantasy football league has a Discord channel and we talk trades there and have a bunch of, we talk about games there. New Mythology has a Discord channel. We talk about the books coming out and you can interact with the authors. Eldor's Legacy has a Discord channel. All these things take away what I call the trash, and that's all these weird ads and stuff that you get on Facebook and all that stuff. I would say of them, Discord is the most fun and has the most potential for fun in the future. The one that's still got the most reach to your buddies is probably Facebook. MeWe has some advantages over Facebook in terms of content, but it doesn't have the population base. That may not be a bad thing.
The one thing I really like about MeWe, and the biggest reason I would love to see people start to kind of migrate that direction, is because they do the one thing that Facebook and Twitter won't do, and that is they give you full control over your news feed. There is no algorithm. You can screen your posts however you like. If you just want content posts from your friends, contacts, that's all you get. If you want to set the setting to pages and just see different pages that you follow, it's all there, and it's in chronological order, and you don't miss anything. You can scroll as long as you want, or you just set it wide open at all posts and you see everything. Right. I love having full control over my newsfeed that way, because there are times when Chris will post something up, and unless he tags me, I don't see it. I don't know that it's there. And particularly if you're talking about a page.
They say that there's a 1.5% native feed that your friends see. 1.5% of your friends see your posts unless you tag them on Facebook, and that's kind of ridiculous. Why have friends? I mean, the whole point. So MeWe does that better. But so I guess if you want a social media from a standpoint of I want to post and get some interaction on posts, and I want to see what people are doing, then I would go MeWe. But if you want a community, go Discord. Again, a lot of this is entirely personal choice.
Yep. Kevin, how about you, man? Where do you like to hang out on social media?
I mean, Facebook I use a lot, and I run ads for my author page and my universe page. I don't like the fact that less than 2% see whatever you post, even on your regular personal page. I mean, I got thousands of friends on the personal page through the years, and 2% see it, so I don't care for that. I got a little bit going on TikTok right now. I just started that the other day, and it's jumping for me, and so I kind of like that. I don't know, what it's going to do, but it's some of that's pretty humorous, and it's fun to watch, and it's almost like Vine was a long time ago. So, which Twitter bought Vine, and then they shut it down. They bought it to kill it. That happened. Yeah. So I got a Twitter. You know, I've got Twitter followers, and I've got 8,000 on Instagram. But it's just it's I don't see a lot of engagement from Instagram and Twitter per se. So
Yep.
I guess Facebook is the way to go for me.
One tip I would add to any listener: if you are a fan of ours, no matter what platform it's on, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or whatever, pretty much all of them allow you a feature or an option where you can select to get notifications when that person posts something new. If you really want to make sure that you get everything from Rob Howell or Kevin Steverson or Ian J. Malone, go into Twitter and click that little box where it says get notifications for this person's tweets, or on Facebook where it allows you to get notifications when that person makes a post. That will at least give you a little bit more of a puncher's chance of knowing when stuff is out without having to just manually remember to go over to our accounts and look at what we've got going on. Back to Martin's point and question about where to find information about the show. I mean, really the best place you could probably do that as a community would be the CKP Factory Floor group. Rob, Kevin, myself, we are all in that group. Whenever we're tagged, whenever we're asked questions, we get notifications on that, and so we know to go in there. We're also, fairly regularly involved with discussions about books and events and things that are happening in there. So if you're looking for one community where you can find all three of us in one stop, yeah, just use your Facebook personal profile and head on over there to the CKP, the Factory Floor group. Join the group, and you can talk to us anytime that you like. Finally, if you want to follow the Shark Flight accounts, at Shark Flight on Twitter and Facebook, that's a Facebook page. Anytime we've got new content out, it goes out on those pages. Whenever we put out a call or request for pod mail questions, stuff like that, it goes out there as well. And again, we share it to the factory floor. So that's pretty well the best way to follow us on social media, but very, very good question, actually. That's a good discussion. All right, that's going to take us down to the hour, slightly past, actually, which means it's white flag time.
White flag.
White flag is the segment where we tell listeners what's on our radar in the coming weeks and months. Could be book stuff, could be editing stuff, could be college football stuff, could be grill out stuff, beer stuff, people stuff, life stuff, stuff. Rob, save me. What are you looking forward to in the next few days?
Well, my sweetie has her son in for the weekend because it's his birthday. So this week, I'm looking forward to spending time with the family and celebrating his birthday. And then, watching football. It is the time of football season, and to be honest, it's probably my favorite time of the year because the football season is in full swing. And we're starting to get to baseball playoffs, and I, love that. And to be honest, I had something pop across my feed today. The St. Louis Blues are going into their training camp today, and hockey season is here, baby. And honestly, while it's a long way away, there's very little more exciting than playoff hockey, especially overtime playoff hockey. So. That's a long way away. Mostly football and baseball, but more coming.
Yep. Kevin, how about you, man? What's on your docket coming up in the next few weeks?
I mentioned earlier going up to the after party for the movie Old Henry, so that's going to be kind of good. Just find out some more information. But football is there. Like I said, my Falcons are stinking up the field, but I still watch them. And the Bulldogs are doing really well. They've allowed one down all year. And that was against some of their second, third string. But I think that defense is legit. We talked about that in the first week, and I honestly think that is a legitimate defense. And even Alabama needs to be nervous when it comes time for the SEC championship.
Yep. Going to be an interesting show. Yeah, Florida took Bama down to the wire. A lot of Florida fans were chirping after that about, look at that, we can hang with them. And I just thought to myself, you idiots, you got to know you had your chance. This was it, and you couldn't do it. The next time Saban meets you, that is going to be it. He's going to take you apart. But that could just be a little bit of schadenfreude on my part. I don't know. I am also looking forward to college football, not in the way that Kevin is, though. I just want to see if my Noles can salvage anything out of this season to try and hang on to that recruiting class. I think that Florida State's best chance to try and get better is to get talent. There's no way around that. We can have the debate down the line about whether Mike Norvell and his staff should or should not be there. Fact of the matter is, financially, they can't fire him. And they're not going anywhere. Might change a coordinator or two after this year, but the head coach is not going anywhere. The only thing that's going to make that program better is an influx of new talent. They seem to have that on the horizon, but you go 2-9, 2-10 this year, you won't have that recruiting class at the end of the year. So going to be interesting to see how they can salvage that. Other stuff I'm looking forward to, got more reading on the docket. Coming up after this small business book, I got a book on tap for about Winston Churchill and his time as prime minister during the Blitz, particularly, which is, you guys know me, I'm a history nut. That's fascinating stuff to me. So looking forward to cracking into that. After that, going to be delving into Minds of Men from our guest for the evening, Kacey Ezell. So excited about that. But anywho, I think that's going to do it for tonight's episode of the show. Speaking of, I want to say one more thanks to Kacey Ezell for coming on board, talking to us about her various ventures and things in the literary world. Looking forward to having her back sometime soon, preferably to talk about her Pittsburgh Steelers. They got some issues over there. Thanks to Rob and Kevin for tagging along, as always. And thanks again to our presenting sponsor. That would, of course, be Chris Kennedy Publishing. Doesn't matter what you're into, folks. Mill, sci-fi, space opera, urban fantasy, they got it all over there. Just visit them online at chriskennedypublishing.com. Sign up for newsletters. Follow them on social media. I mean, crap, there's stuff coming out every week. So if you're a voracious reader, we got you covered at chriskennedypublishing.com. On behalf of Rob, on behalf of Kevin, I am Ian J. Malone, saying we will see you next time on the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast. See ya.